Hey, everybody. What's up? It's Miami week. It's the Warchant Report powered by Cummins. Check them out over on their Instagram page, Cummins Lifestyle, all one word. Give them a follow. Stay abreast of all the awesome things they're doing with their own in line of products, which includes their portable power stations, portable generators. Boost your recreational lifestyle with awesome products from Cummins and their own in line. And check them out also if you're going to be in South Bend, Indiana on November 9th. More details to follow. There even might be some sort of informational graphic over my face as I discuss this. Let's bring the talent back on camera, though. Ira Schofel, managing editor of Warchant.com. Jeff Cameron, wildly popular radio host of the Jeff Cameron Show. 1 to 4 p.m. We're back, everybody. 3 hours has been going strong. He and Tom Lane, 93.3 FM, as well as Warchant TV, which is just a fancy way of saying our YouTube channel.
I'm still waiting for the return to the 4-hour Jeff Cameron Show.
Never going to happen.
We've got it back to 3. I feel like we're on the door, Aslan, and getting 4 hours of Jeff Cameron.
Can you imagine having to do 4 hours talking about this team?
Well, we're about to do about 35 minutes, so buckle up, everybody. Thanks for being here. Florida State taking on Miami, number 6 Miami, down in Miami Gardens on Saturday night. It will be on ESPN, 7 p.m. As we sit here and all hang out and discuss things, Florida State, a 21-point underdog. This, in the recent modern era, as far back as I can tell, guys, and Jeff, you might know a little bit better than I do, this is the largest margin that Florida State's been an underdog in this series in the modern era. Miami was an underdog, 21.5 points in 2013 when Jimbo and Jameis ran rough. Well, they kind of ran rough shot on them, but that's the largest point total I was able to see in terms of a point spread between these two teams when it comes down to. So again, Florida State with their backs to the wall, biggest underdog in this series that I could discover. Also, this game will have a pregame show and a postgame show. Jeff Cameron, do we know what time the pregame show is going down?
I think 9 a.m. again. I think it's early. I think we're just staying steady at 9 a.m. We get it out there to the people to start your day. It's anti-college game day programming. So there you go.
And that's what I was going to say is I've had a lot of friends who have told me that it's great counter programming to game day since we all have declared war on them. So you don't have to watch it at 9 a.m. You can watch it later throughout the day. But that window between 10 and 12 is pretty sweet.
I like it.
Jeff and Tom got your backs covered. All right, let's start with you then, Jeff. What's the narrative going to be on this game ultimately Saturday, do you think? Is it going to be Miami showing to the country kind of how easy it is to turn fortunes around and become an instant winner, national championship caliber program? Or is it going to be Florida State tripping over themselves and showing the nation just how easy it is to be on the mountaintop one year and then find yourself at kind of rock bottom?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll tell you, Aslan, I think they'll certainly celebrate the Heisman campaign of, Ward, who's done such a good job. Cam Ward has played exceptionally well. He's electrifying and fun to watch. Miami is a brand. They'll celebrate the fact they're undefeated. They're in line to win, certainly compete for the conference title with a chance to go to the playoff. It makes sense. But it is a shocking development to watch last year's ACC champion be in the cellar and amongst the worst teams in college football. I don't know which is most compelling, but I imagine the broadcast is going to focus on the team that's doing the winning and the quarterback that's electrifying, who right now projects to go certainly in the upper half of the first round of the NFL draft, whereas Florida State doesn't really have a player to focus on as much, but rather a collective misery.
Yeah. So as I counted it up here, Ira, Miami's got 13 of their starting 22 from last year. They actually have 13 of those guys still on the roster. That does include Emory Williams, who won't be playing in this game. Well, maybe he will be if Patrick Payton and company has anything to say about it, and they can maybe rough up Cam Ward. Also, Damari Brown, who's been injured most of the season after the Florida game. Meanwhile, Florida State's got 8 returning starters still on the roster from last year's team that's on this roster. So I guess a juxtaposition of these two programs and where they were last year, where Miami seemingly had no shot going to the contest, and now Florida State has that shoe on their foot. What do you think the overarching sort of discussion will be throughout the show, whether it's watching this broadcast or the people discussing it afterwards? Will it be Miami, look how quickly they did this, you can do it right, you can do it quick, or will it be Florida State's the cautionary tale?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the story is that this is the state of college football today. And Corey wrote a column about it. People can read it on our website at warchant.com. That, this, I think, is going to be the new normal of college football. Teams can go from 0 to 100 by hitting it right in the portal, and teams can go from 100 to 0 by missing a lot of things in the portal. And, the storyline I think in Florida State for most of the season, for a lot of frustrated fans, is now everybody's saying, oh, well, we lived by the portal, we died by the portal, we need to go away from the portal. Well, this Miami team that everybody's celebrating is largely built through the portal. I mean, they've got some of their homegrown talent. As you said, some guys have been on the roster, but not all, the vast majority of their top players were guys they brought in. Their running back, receiver, quarterback, several starters on defense. You know, the answer isn't necessarily to go away from the portal. The answer is to just, you got to hit it. You got to do it right. You got to be better at it. And, you know, obviously recruiting is important. Building your program, if you can, for longevity is key. But with the rosters fluctuating the way they are, I just think that these are two polar opposites in the very infancy stages of where we're going in college football. But I think you're going to see more and more of this. I think you're going to see teams fly up the charts and crash down the charts from year to year based on how they do in the portal.
Really quickly, Aslan, I want to add to Ira's point. Oklahoma State is 3-4. They won 9 games last year. Southern Cal is 3-4. They have a larger payroll than Florida State. They're paying their head coach $1 gazillion. Michigan is 4-3 with a couple narrow wins where they'd be under 500. They can't play quarterback. Their offense is one of the worst in the country. They've got 3 more losses coming. They just won the national title. Kansas is 2-5. They went 9. Lance Leipold's one of the best coaches in the country. They won 9 games last year. They'll lose 7 or 8 this year. I do think that's true, and yet I think Florida State is an extreme outlier in the sense that we may go 2-10 after going 13-0.
Yeah, I mean, you watch more NFL than the both of us, I feel like, Jeff. And there's always like the 2 teams, one from each conference that goes from last in their division to end up winning their division the next season. And listen, if we're going to call a spade, I mean, NIL portal, it's largely free agency, so we probably will see that kind of volatility as things continue to not really have any kind of really firm guardrails to keep things in order.
Yeah, it's hard for people to, I'm sorry, Ira, real quick. I think it's hard for people to wrap their minds around because college football has always been immune to that. You know, your blue bloods did not go from winning 12 games one year or back in the day 10 games to turning around and losing 9 of them the next year. It just never happened because they stockpiled talent. The blue bloods recruited at such a high level, you were immune to having a season like this. But because free agency has come to college football, it's not a unilateral situation where everybody has the same amount yet. And the way that people have attacked the portal has differed early on. Now, that's a different discussion for a different day because I think it's a different kind of challenge for Mike and his staff now. But I do think if you miss on a couple of guys and you don't get the quarterback right and you have a couple of injuries, you can go from 11-1 to 6-6 or 5-7 very quickly.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify. I'm not saying like that every year's a roll of the dice and it's just bad luck. I mean, the blame still goes to the head coach and this coaching staff, but I do think the ebbs and flows are going to be much more drastic now than they have been in the past. It's not going to be, oh, well, Florida State had a down year. They went 9-3 or 10-2. If you have a down year, I think it can go really south.
All right, Florida State will be in Hard Rock South taking on Miami on Saturday. Jeff, you know, I feel like there's maybe a spectrum here of Florida State being an outmanned, outgunned team and going into hostile territory. 2017 Clemson, a team that ends up being a national semifinalist, Jimbo's last season. You kind of braced for the worst, but somehow, some way, they made it a football game for the better part of 4 quarters. Then you got 2019 when Florida State goes into Clemson with Willie and Kendall Briles, and that was just an absolute dragging of nonsense for the better part of that game. Can Mike Norvell do anything? Can he show anything? His coaching acumen, some coaching chops, restore some of the confidence that Florida State fans have in him by game planning something to be a little bit closer to like a 17 performance that Florida State had against a rival versus what they did in 2019?
They would have to find a way to run the ball and shorten the game and make it a fewer possession game. Miami's defense has not been good. You can see that it's porous, but Florida State can't block, Aslan. And if you can't block, it's tough to exploit some of the issues that they've had, in particular at one corner spot. I don't know that Florida State can establish the run. If you look at success rates, some teams have been able to run the ball against Miami. I don't know that Florida State can, because many of the teams that are in the lower third of the defensive metrics that Florida State's played, they couldn't exploit. Memphis gives up points to everybody. I mean, everybody. North Texas, Navy, you name it. I mean, Florida State didn't move the ball successfully, consistently against that group either. I would think that's the recipe. I hope certainly we find something there. I would also say the other side of the ball has to play great, because the defense has locked in and shown up at times this year and been more consistent. The problem is Cam Ward is really good and he can make people miss. I think you've got to wreak havoc. You got to try to exploit off the edges and get to him and force him into bad decisions, which he's been prone to do in his career. I don't know that Florida State is equipped to do it.
All right, a great coach, I'm not saying would walk into Miami and beat the Hurricanes, but could maybe find some way to create, I don't know, situations where his team can find a way to keep this thing competitive, and then who knows what can happen. Is that something that Mike can show us that maybe we haven't seen in the past, or is this roster just too far removed from asking him to line up and hang tough with the #1 total offense in the nation?
I mean, I think that, he said earlier this week, I think when he spoke to the media on Sunday, he said that this is a game that they prepare for 365 days a year. Every other game is the game that they have to focus on at that time. But Miami and Florida are games that they think about the whole year. You'd love to see some imagination on offense. I agree with Jeff. Yes, you gotta figure out a way to control the football, to possess the football, so that you don't give Miami a bunch of opportunities, because Cam Ward's going to put up points. The problem is this is the worst offense in the country at many things, including third down conversions. If not the worst, it's one of the worst. So they have a hard time staying on the field. But, man, that's where I do think some imagination, some creativity on offense, where think back to, again, man, Mike Dorvell's first and second years at Florida State when he didn't have much talent and he would scheme up just a few plays here and there to extend drives. That, to me, is going to be the key. He's got to figure out a way. You can't just expect on 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 or even 3rd and 5 most of the time for these young quarterbacks to just convert first downs. Norvell's got to be creative. And then the other part of it is, look, man, Miami, maybe it's wishful thinking, but they do seem to show a tendency of playing with their food. The last few weeks, they have not put teams away. Maybe it'll be different because they'll see Florida State on the other side. But I just think that that's the other thing that could help them out is this Miami team, when they get going, man, it's frightening what they can do on offense. But sometimes they seem like they're just kind of a little bit listless. And so to me, that's the key. Try to do whatever you can do from a creativity standpoint, because you cannot expect these guys to just move the football. And then the other side of it is hope. You got to hope that Miami's careless with the football, as Jeff said with Cam Ward, or that they just don't seem to have the same killer instinct that they really haven't shown when they played any team with a pulse since the Florida game.
That almost sounded like keys to victory. That's usually a second segment thing. I were giving us an extra credit.
I got more keys to victory, Aslan. I got a few more. They just they involve like some illegal activity, food poisoning, and some things like that.
Well, let's get a real in-depth look at Miami to see where, if any, sort of vulnerabilities there may be. Our Matt LaSerre caught up with Gary Ferman over at CaneSport.com. We'll hear from them, and we'll give you a best-case scenario possibly for Florida State on Saturday night when we come back right here on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Your favorite football team doesn't stop pushing its limits on the climb to the top, and neither does a global power technology leader like Cummins. Cummins has released its new QG4000i generator and is taking it across the country to show America that whether it's turbo diesel engines or taking it easy in your RV, life is a little bit better with a touch of the Cummins lifestyle. The Own and Unplugged tour is crisscrossing the country, including a stop in South Bend, Indiana, home of Notre Dame, when the Fighting Irish host Florida State on November 9th. FSU will play like a champion. You come by and tailgate like one. Follow Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram for updates, and don't forget to get involved every week in generating discussion on Wake Up Warchant for your opportunity to win free Cummins swag and a chance at a portable generator or power station. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give it a follow. Welcome back. Warchant Report powered by Cummins. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give that a follow. Check in with what they're doing as their RV crisscrosses the country, showing you all the awesome things you can do with the Own and line of products. Again, portable generators, portable power stations. In fact, if you're a member of Warchant.com and you get involved in the Wake Up Warchant Renegade Express Weekly, you have a chance to win a free portable generator or portable power station from Cummins. And as a customer client, I've got one. Thing is pretty clutch. So give it a shot. Check it out. Give them a follow over on Instagram.
Jeff, was there a band called Power Station?
Yeah, it was a super band. It had
That's
Robert
right.
Palmer and it had Andy Taylor and all those guys.
That's
It
right.
was the guy from Duran Duran and Robert Palmer. Yeah.
Every time Aslan mentions the Power Station, these flashbacks to
and you'll
the
recall
80s.
they sang "Some Like It Hot."
That's right. All right.
I got you, buddy. I'm here for you.
That's why I asked you, my friend.
Well, was Robert Palmer? Listen, as an '80s baby, I only knew Addicted to Love and Simply Irresistible. What was his? Was he in a band before that?
Robert Palmer had gone out on his own and had huge success early on in his career, had two kind of big classic rock hits, and then faded away and then made this grand return to what you just named, those renewed hits in the 80s.
Was he in Genesis, though?
He was not. That was Peter Gabriel. That was in Genesis.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. Obviously, Phil Collins was also in Genesis.
I'm aware of that. I got that.
Yeah. But Peter Gabriel was the original lead singer of Genesis. But no, Robert Palmer was like this weird phenomenon, just this English singer who made it big and then kind of went away and then had this grand return in the 80s that Aslan remembers.
Jeff, if you ever need like a new agent and you want to talk to Gene, I want to bargain for you that whenever Florida State is more than 2 games under 500, JCS can become like a music podcast show. So.
Hey, I've been tempted to do a music podcast show many times. And I mean, I don't know how much of people would want that, but it's fun. It's the other passion, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, Florida State's going to need to play with great passion to knock off number 6 Miami. We've got a pretty good surface understanding, everybody at home, of what makes Miami sort of tick right now. But let's get a further deep dive into the roster of Miami and maybe some vulnerabilities. They're not feeling all that great about the defense, it feels like. Matt LaSerre called with Gary Ferman from CaneSport.com to discover more.
All right, it is Miami week, and of course we have Gary Ferman from CaneSport on Three's Miami site. If you want to learn more about this Miami team or read more about this game coming up, but from the Miami side, that's where you got to go. Just to get right into it, obviously we'll start with the quarterback, Cam Ward, someone who was a Florida State-Miami battle coming out of the portal. He's obviously been great in Heisman contention. What say you?
Just come in. He's taken the entire Miami program on his back and has just been unbelievable week after week. The consistency is what gets me. I mean, just incredibly consistent week to week, and he's learning not to make mistakes, turning the ball over, understanding that that's the only thing that could probably derail him with this group of teammates that he has and all the skill players that Miami brings to the equation. It really would take a turnover-laden performance by Cam Ward to derail the locomotive, so to speak. And he had the one bad game in that regard against Virginia Tech, and Miami was able to come back and win that game despite those mistakes. And
then to get into the people who's getting the ball after Cam Ward, I guess a really good running back room, really good wide receivers too, led by Xavier Restrepo. Who do you kind of expect, and who should we watch for when it comes to the guys making the plays?
All of them. I mean, no, seriously. I mean, you look, they had 4 receivers catch touchdown passes last week at Louisville. And the running game is really just now starting to blossom with Jalen Rivers coming back from injury at left tackle. I thought they were physical and dominant at the line of scrimmage up at Louisville. I mean, some of the running plays that they busted, if anybody really cares, they can go back and look at some of the tape. We actually have a story about it on our CaneSport.com website. But the running game, there's so much focus on Cam Ward in the passing game, the top passing game in the nation right now. But Miami was running the ball at an elite level against Louisville. This is really evolving as a well-rounded offense positioned for what they're going to face in December.
And then flipping over to the defense, this defensive line has been really good. The main question, Ruben Bain has had some injury troubles this year. What's his status, and then what should we look for on the rest of the line?
He's back. He's been back for the last 2 weeks, slowly evolving into the Ruben Bain that everybody saw last year and had such high hopes for this year. Really was kind of low-key in his first game back. I thought he played better last week. I think he got credited for 8 quarterback pressures. He's not getting the sacks yet, but you could see where that could come. The defensive line in general has been a little, to me, like I know I'm a tough critic at times, but it's been a little uneven to me. Simeon Barrow's probably been the most consistent at defensive tackle. I feel Tyler Barron has disappeared for like the last month. He could play a whole lot better than what he's been playing. Akeem Mesidor is probably a defensive end playing defensive tackle and paying the price a little bit for that. But, in whole, they are the strength of the Miami defense, no doubt. And the linebackers have been a little uneven in their play also, quite frankly, which is why you're seeing Miami allowing as many points as it's allowed the last couple weeks. And the secondary has really been the weak link. So for your audience, the key for FSU, I think, is going to be, can they throw the football?
And then the last thing we really need to talk about, because you touched on the linebackers, is just the secondary done really well. I see the safety there is 3 interceptions. Who is there to watch?
I mean, to be honest with you, it's the weak link of the team. They've been struggling the last few weeks. They had a lot of mental busts against Cal, which was unusual since they hadn't really been doing that earlier in the season. Gave up 4 plays of 50-plus yards. Last week against Louisville, I think they just ran into some pretty athletic skill athletes. They're a little challenged from a speed standpoint. Louisville had some very quick running backs and receivers that gave Miami problems. But that's clearly going to be the area of focus for Miami this week, is getting that secondary back on track. And if they can do that, I think it'll bode well for their results on Saturday. If they can't, maybe FSU can make it a game. We'll see.
Awesome, man. And once again, that is Gary Ferman from CaneSport. If you want to find out more and read into more about this Miami team that Florida State is playing on Saturday at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, go over there and read as much as you want. Thank you again, Gary, for coming on.
Anytime, guys. Thank you.
Thanks to Gary. Thanks to Matt. Matt texted me, Gary's a homer. He's like, but so am I. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, they've been down for a while, so they're gonna boast. They're gonna beat.
I was just about to say, I'm sure that was a delightful conversation with Gary.
Gary had me on one of their shows, and then he was like, his preface to a question. I love you, Gary. His preface to a question was, well, now that Florida State knows that neither of these young quarterbacks are any good, what are they going to do next year? And I'm like, settle down. We saw Luke for 6 minutes in a game he wasn't expecting to play. But anyway,
Gary once told me that Miami was going on my show that Miami's going to win by 28. And this is years ago when Florida State went down there. Is the Chris Thompson game, the back-to-back runs. So he's telling me how bad it's going to be because Florida State's still a couple years away. So it's just not your time. And I laughed at him at the time because I was picking Florida State, not because I was a homer, but because we knew what was coming with what this team was becoming. And anyhow, he hasn't had me back on since.
He did ask Mario in the press conference, God love him, that like, what are you gonna do at quarterback next year? It's like, dude, like, you guys are maybe
enjoy this
conference championship on, but anyhow, let's worry about Saturday. Ira, you've you always attack everything with a really sort of level-headed approach. I feel like, I sometimes get too caught up in Corey's rants, and then you've kind of settled us down with trying to go look for the next greatest offensive coordinator. So give us a best case scenario kind of thing. Listen, we're not waving a white flag here, but I don't want you to even give me keys to victory because that feels a little disingenuous. But I guess, what do you hope to ultimately see from Florida State? What are they equipped to do on Saturday night? And how can those two things kind of merge and give us a best case performance out of the Noles on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, where we're at right now with this football team is, can they keep it competitive? I mean, I think that's about all you can ask for. And you hate to say that for a program like Florida State. But, the difference between this game against Miami, what concerns me about this game, beyond just, obviously the players, the other thing that really concerns me about this game is we all wondered if Dabo would try to bury Florida State, a few weeks ago because of, the narrative about the transfer portal. And he's going up against this FSU team that's thrived in the portal and beat him last year. And would he try to go out and win by 40? He didn't do that. Like, once he got a lead, he didn't really try to pile it on. I thought they got conservative, but I think that's not because he didn't want to, but I think he knows his team is not equipped for that. He does not have Trevor Lawrence or, Deshaun Watson back there where he can name his score. I think he's a little bit concerned about Cade, that maybe if he's too aggressive, Florida State could have got back in the game. Then last week against Duke, we could talk about how well this Florida State defense played, but I think once you spotted them those 17 points, I think Duke shut it down. Florida State, they were not going to let Florida State beat them on defense. To me, this would be different. This is a situation where Mario Cristobal cares about recruiting as much as he cares about anything. He played in this rivalry when it was the deal. He hates Florida State. He's going to have some Florida State not only targets, but at least one commitment for Florida State is supposed to be at that game on their sideline. They're going to have a ton of recruits there. I think he's going to try to send a message. So that's what concerns me most about this game. But, You asked me for something positive. And what I would say is, touching back on what I said before, is Cam Ward's got to make some mistakes. You're not going to beat them if Cam Ward doesn't make mistakes. Now, the good thing is he will make mistakes. And, last week was the first time I've watched probably every game they played this year. This past game, I can't remember who was doing the game, but whoever it was on color actually acknowledged that fact and said, man, some of these throws he makes are not what you want to do. And some of the times he's throwing across his body, the extending the plays and being careless. And it's backfired them a couple times. And a few times it should have backfired on them. And for whatever reason, it didn't. Like the other team couldn't make the play. Florida State's got to capitalize on those opportunities. This is an FSU defense that has not created any turnovers all year. Man, they have to come in this game. That's the only way it's going to stay competitive. And then again, on offense, I do think Mike Norvell's got to be a little bit more creative than we've seen so far. So to me, that's the way to keep it competitive. But even that, I think, is going to be a challenge because I think Mario's going to put the foot on the gas if he can.
To your point on Wednesday, I saw something different that Florida State has not really done at practice all season long. And like Adam Fuller was working specifically with his defensive backs, working on like reading routes, doing certain things, techniques. And later on in practice, you actually saw it pay dividends where one of his guys was able to pick off a pass in practice. So I think he's fully aware of those sort of, opportunities they're going to have, Jeff. Florida State's opportunities, it seems like offensively is going to be to throw the ball, but I don't think you want to get involved in a back and forth chucking the ball around the park contest against Cam Ward in Miami right now. So what is the best case for Florida State considering what they're up against and what they possess and what Miami has right now?
To your point, Miami has 10 interceptions or 11 forced turnovers, and 10 of those are interceptions this year. It's the antithesis of Florida State's defense in terms of creating turnovers. I go back to what Ira said when he was talking about, the scenario where Florida State has a chance. I really believe they've got to possess the football, find some semblance of a running game. That will be with the quarterback running the ball. I think that's how you keep them honest. You make this an 11-on-11 game. And that really was the key to their success last week against Duke running the ball. Well, I say success, it's all relative. But they had more success certainly running the ball against Duke than they have had previous, and that's because the threat was real. Now, this time around, if you run it and it's Brock, you got to hold on to the football. But there's opportunities there, and I do think that is always true when the quarterback is incorporated in the run game. Maybe you get out early. Look, at the end of the day, whatever tricks he has up his sleeve to try to muster some sort of competition here where this is still a game into halftime, if by chance you create a turnover, you get a big special teams play, Mike is in his bag of tricks and he throws the kitchen sink at him, and the next thing you know, it's a one-score game late into the third quarter, well, now that gets interesting because Miami is the overwhelming favorite. You brought up the point spread to start the show. Their season would be on the line. This would be a catastrophic loss for Miami, and really one that in the back of every Miami fan's head, they've thought about for just a nanosecond. Like, what if we lose to this Florida State team when we have the best team we've had in 20-plus years? What if we blow it right here, right now at home in front of this crowd, which only shows up to this game? So try to put game pressure on Miami into the second half. If somehow, and it's a big if and wish, if this is 28-24 late in the third or 27-20 late in the third or something like that, all the pressure is on Miami to make it happen. Do I think that's going to happen? It's unlikely. It's very unlikely. We haven't seen the evidence for that this season. But if it were to happen, if you did everything you could to be in it in the middle of the third or late in the third quarter, all the pressure would shift to Miami immensely. It's hard to imagine the way they would feel like, what is going on here?
I feel like
no criticism, Ira. That's compelling television from Jeff Cameron.
I feel like I just went to the doctor. The doctor's like, listen, now we're going to do all these treatments. And if they all somehow work, you might make it. Do I think that's going to happen? No, not really.
But I'm not saying it's a 0% chance. I'm just saying, yeah.
All right, there's about 7 of us that are going to make our game picks. So there's a chance one of us is going to be feeling froggy. Let's see how it all shakes out. We're making our game predictions right after this here on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins.
Your favorite football team doesn't stop pushing its limits on the climb to the top, and neither does a global power technology leader like Cummins. Cummins has released its new QG4000i generator and is taking it across the country to show America that whether it's turbo diesel engines or taking it easy in your RV, life is a little bit better with a touch of the Cummins lifestyle. The Own and Unplugged tour is crisscrossing the country, including a stop in South Bend, Indiana, home of Notre Dame, when the Fighting Irish host Florida State on November 9th. FSU will play like a champion. You come by and tailgate like one. Follow Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram for updates, and don't forget to get involved every week in generating discussion on Wake Up Warchant for your opportunity to win free Cummins swag and a chance at a portable generator or power station. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give it a follow.
Welcome back. It's a Warchant Report powered by Cummins. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give that a follow. That's the ask. That's it, everybody. Don't got to spend a single dime. Just check out all the cool things you can do with Cummins products. Put in the back of your head, maybe the front of your head. Next time you got a project that you want to get done. Maybe you do want to do and chase the dream, get retired, have an RV, tour around the country. Well, Cummins has got you covered. Go check out what you can do. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminoles sports source. Come home, everybody. Come on. If you subscribe now, you'll get right through early signing period, transfer portal window, maybe a hot board or 6. We'll see how it all goes, everybody. And don't forget, before the Miami game, 9 a.m., getting you started. Forget about big noon kickoff and game day and whatever else is out there. Jeff Cameron, Tom Lane got you covered with their pregame show. There'll also be a postgame show, 10 to 15 minutes following the game with Gene Williams and Tom Lang. I think that one's sparked by, or rather presented by T-Spark. Also, the Vitamin Energy Warchant Wrap with Ira Schofel and Corey Clark. Don't know how we're going to do that one, Ira. I think the last time, like in 2020, you were down there solo.
It was.
You patched him in. Maybe we'll do that all over again, but I'll be there to help you. I'll get you properly lit and everything. You'll look 5-star, as you always do. All right, let's stop rambling now. You want to know picks. You want to know the numbers. We'll make ours. But first, the rest of the staff over at warchant.com.
It's Florida State Miami week. This should be fun for FSU fans, right? Sadly, it will not be. This is painful to talk about, but we got to do it. But let's start out with a positive. Miami is coming into this game with an awful defense. Just everybody is running roughshod over them. So you know what? I think this is a shot for Florida State to maybe break that elusive 20-point barrier. That's a positive. I'm also very curious to see how Adam Fuller's defense will perform against, which will easily be the best offense it's played all season, led by Cam Ward. Miami is averaging 48 points a game. They are just racking it up right now. So we'll see how that goes. So the good news is I think Florida State might put up a few points in this game. For them, a lot of points. I'm picking FSU to score 24 in this game. The downside of that is, well, Miami's probably going to get the 40s like they do most of the season. I'm going to go 42 Miami, 24 Florida State. Sorry, no upset. But, you know, we'll see what happens afterwards.
What's up, Nole fans? It's your old friend Corey Clark. You might remember me from such pregame picks as Florida State beating Georgia Tech and Florida State beating Boston College. Well, I'm not picking that Florida State is going to beat Miami. They are going to lose, in my opinion, and lose pretty severely. I'm looking. I think the defense will play hard for a while, but as the offense continues to struggle and not put up touchdowns, maybe they kick a couple field goals, but you're not going to beat Miami with field goals. You can't put it in the end zone; it's going to get ugly. Miami is gettable. Their defense is certainly gettable. You've seen that the last 3 weeks. Florida State is not. They just don't have the tools to get them. So I'm looking at and then eventually the Avalanche will start. So I'm going to say Miami 44, Florida State 20. Maybe they get a touchdown late to cut it to 44 to 20. Hopefully one of the quarterbacks looks good though. But yeah, I'm not seeing this being all that competitive in the second half. Hope I'm wrong though. Hope I'm wrong. And that's it. I'm out.
Miami 41, Florida State 17.
This is a hard game to pick, but I do think Miami will win, and I think they'll win comfortably. But it's not like it would be surprising if Florida State was able to stay in this one. From the matchup segment, talking to Gary Ferman, he said the secondary had a speed issue, and that was kind of their weakest link of the defense, or the weakest link of the team overall. And what was this Florida State team built around to start the year was small, speedy receivers who can beat you deep. So if Florida State could finally take advantage of that and the receivers can catch the ball, you could see this really become a game if they could take advantage of that one big weakness. And Now, will they? I don't know. The receiving core has probably been the weakest link for Florida State this year. So it's kind of hard to tell if it'll actually be able to happen. But the pieces are there for them to actually have a good game in that regard for once. So I still think Miami's going to win and win comfortably. I have the game 42-21 Miami.
All right, let's continue this Bataan Death March into the weekend. Florida State taking on Miami again, 21-point spread. As my research fleshed out, the largest underdog status for Florida State in this rivalry in modern history. 7 p.m. ESPN. We'll be down there, Ira. I'll be there with you. You'll be there with me. What are we going to witness on Saturday night in Hard Rock Stadium?
Oh, I mean, a lot of neon clothing, probably some techno music. What else will we?
DMX.
Some
DMX all day, buddy.
All right.
All right, real quick. Guys, everybody stay in packs. Stay in packs. Watch each other's back. Don't mouth off. Let's just get in and out, and let's move on with our lives.
Like I told my wife when she was my girlfriend and we moved down there back in 20-something years ago, just keep looking ahead.
Yeah.
Don't make eye contact. Just keep looking ahead. Keep your head down. Keep it moving. Try not to trash talk anyone. Here's the good news, guys. I think because I'm not real fond of Miami's defense, and because I do think that they have a tendency to lose interest, I think Florida State's going to hit 20 points this week, guys. I also think they're going to lose 48-20. So I think it's going to be a rough day. I don't know that they're going to throw a scare into them, but I do think Florida State will figure out a way. Mike Norvell will figure out a way to score a little bit, but I just can't see how they're going to keep pace. And I do think Cristobal is going to be motivated to score as much as he can.
Sounds like a reasonable outcome. Jeff, I imagine you being a reasonable man might be in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I'm taking the over in this game, and thus I will grab Miami and have them scoring 51 points on the Seminole defense, with the Noles scoring 17. Could be 20. Ira might be right about that 20. I like that number. He's
like a good 56-yarder from Fitzy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right down the pipe. So it's random these days, but it's a blowout, and it's 51. I do think that Mario is motivated and will want to avenge last time they were down there 45-3. Yeah, man.
To tell you how, I mean, again, for people that don't pay attention to recruiting, how motivated they are about recruiting. Mario Cristobal is about recruiting, and he's fanatical about recruiting. That's kind of been the strength of his coaching career. When they played in Gainesville, his players went over to the recruits that UF was hosting.
Yes.
And they went over and told them all they need to come to Miami. So this is at his stadium, and they'll have their own recruits there. So, yeah, I just think they're going to want to put on a show.
I agree.
I'm in a glass box of emotion, but I'm also going to push 44-13.
Right.
44-13. Miami wins this one. On to North Carolina. And
on to the next, Aslan. On to the next, baby.
Yeah. And the hot boards, everybody, please submit your resumes and theories and all that sort of stuff. We're going to have you cover the entire way up until kickoff. Obviously, Wake Up Warchant going down the morning. Jeff Cameron show 1 to 4 o'clock. Henshaw's house, is that going down later on Thursday, Ira?
Yeah, we're going to be doing the video. It's going to record it Thursday, but it'll probably air on the website on probably Friday.
Okay, cool. Coach speak, I imagine.
Yep.
That's tomorrow.
Okay, coach speak as well. So, and then game day. Pre-game show 9 a.m., post-game show 10 to 15 minutes afterwards. Gene Williams, Tom Lang, Warchant Rap, presented by Vitamin Energy, Ira Schofel, Corey Clark. So many voices, guys that have been covering this team for decades upon decades. They've seen everything. Let's hope we see a miraculous, historic, never before seen upset in this rivalry. We can only hope. We keep our fingers crossed. We appreciate you folks tuning in. No, it's been a bit of a rough week, but it is Miami week. And we're just going to keep clocking in and creating content for you folks. That's how we.
And starting next week, the 4-hour Jeff Cameron show returns.
That's never going to happen. There you go. I'll tell you what, I will for you, Ira. If Florida State beats Miami this Saturday, do a week's worth of 4-hour shows.
Let's go.
Yeah,
all right.
There you go. I will do it.
Appreciate
I will do it. And I would never be so happy to do it. I mean, this would be an amazing moment.
Real Talk program manager, director, right now. What am I going to do? I got to knock all these guys off the air.
Good times.
For Jeff and Ira, Corey Clark, Matt LaSerre, Gene Williams, and Tom Lang. I'm Aslan Hudjavani. Thanks so much for watching the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins.